Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Sandra Bradford.
Here.
Barry Altshuler.
Here.
Leah Collister-Lazari.
Here.
Erin Chan-Ding.
Here.
Katie Karam.
Here.
Steve Wang.
Here.
Diana Clapton.
Here. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to our August 15th regular Board of Education meeting, and welcome to the start of the 2023-2024 school year. I want to start with a reminder of our mission statement that was up on the screen, empowering personal excellence in every learner. I might just do that every meeting, just so we all have that foundation of where we are. There's a lot of construction going on out there that everybody can see. I really thank the administration for the updates. I've been enjoying watching it online, and I know we're going to hear a lot more about it this evening. I'll just remind the board to save the dates and the community save the dates. We've got some ribbon cutting ceremonies coming up in October, the Early Learning Center on October 3rd, and Lines on October 16th. As a board, we were deeply saddened to hear about the recent passing of Shelley Anderson, one of our longtime school district attorneys from Franzik Law Firm. We're grateful to Shelley for her many years of service to 220, as well as school districts across the state, and her commitment to the field of education. Our thoughts and prayers are with Shelley's family during this difficult time. Other things for me to report are a bit more on the positive side. Steve Wang and I were able to attend the new educator luncheon just last week. This is one of my favorite events of the year, and hopefully you felt the same, Steve.
That was great.
It's really a great time to meet all the new faces and to get excited about the year coming up. And they very much appreciated the lunch that we provided for them. So thank you, board, for providing that lunch to the new educators. I also attended the referendum committee last week, which we'll report on a little bit later in the meeting as well. And thank you again, board, for all your thoughts and collaborations at our workshop that we held was that just last month? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to just run through the committee assignments that you were given a week or so ago. You just flip over to that. I'm trying to go all electronic here. So I will be the BACOG liaison. The Education Foundation liaison will be Leah Collister-Lazari. EdRed will be Erin Chan-Ding. Our Health Insurance Committee reps will be Barry Altshuler and Leah Collister-Lazari. Labor Management, Steve Wang and myself. Legislative Committee will be Erin and Katie. Referendum Construction will be Barry and Steve Wang. So Steve Wang, I introduced you as the new member coming up.
Thank you.
And Resource Allocation Committee will be Diana Clapton and Steve Wang. And Safety and Security will be Diana and Katie Karam. So there's a few that you didn't hear me mention, because we're going to do those committees a little bit differently. We're going to be assigning both the District Equity and the PTO President's Council differently this year. We're going to rotate our attendance so that we all have the opportunity to interact and get to know these committees. So Janine Stark's going to be distributing a list of dates for us, and I ask that you get back to Janine with your preferences by next Friday. August 25th. Okay. Other actions related to our workshop today, we're going to talk about our norms and communication expectations, and we'll affirm our equity statement as we get to those in the agenda. Those will be action items. And just a reminder, coming up already, our next workshop will be on September 19th. And we still need to talk about maybe when we might have our board dinner, our social dinner. So look for an email from me on that as well. Or breakfast, as we talked about last time. One last thing I wanted to report on, I sent you all an email, I think just today. We have an opportunity to attend the Crabtree Nature Center reopening on Sunday, August 27th at 10 o'clock. We've had a close partnership with Crabtree Nature Center. It's been very beneficial to our students. I think we've had our kindergarten classes regularly visiting Crabtree since about 2016. So see your email for those logistics and let us know if you're able to attend. Okay. Next part of our agenda is public comment, and we had no one signed up for public comment. So we will call public comment closed. I'm reading the room here. I'm not seeing anybody jumping. All right, so then next up, Dr. Winkleman, please give us your report.
Yeah, we'll have a presentation
That
pulled
one
up.
I think I can do.
Okay.
I will just let the board know that Board Docs is down. If you're having troubles, it is not just you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, dear.
We're having trouble.
Oh, dear.
That's why I said, I'm going to pull up the presentation here, question mark, because I wasn't really sure what was going on at the table there. So thank you. I'm glad we can pull that up. So hopefully I'll give my comments and Board Docs will
We'll
come
keep trying as the meeting goes on.
back online. So it's been a number of weeks, I think 5 since our last meeting, and we have been hard at work getting ready for the start of school. So I do have a little bit longer report tonight. First and foremost, as I mentioned, we're gearing up. We're getting ready for welcoming our students back, and we are so excited that our students will return to our schools on Monday, August 21st, as well as our youngest learners in our early childhood and kindergarten programs next Wednesday. A lot goes into getting ready for school, and I want to take an opportunity to really recognize our staff members that have been hard at work preparing for the upcoming school year. So a big thank you to our support staff for updating technology and equipment, processing orders and supplies, building bus routes, preparing records, and numerous other functions. Our educators, our teachers, we had over 1,100 teachers participate in over 65 professional development experiences to enhance their knowledge and pedagogy through Summer University program that we host in the summer. And I think that's really important for them to be able to improve their instructional practices. Our administrators also participated in numerous PD opportunities, as well as determining teacher assignments, balancing rosters, assigning rooms, developing a master schedule. In addition, our custodial maintenance and ground crews have been very hard at work to ensure that we have clean, safe, and well-maintained learning environments for our students. So, as you can see, a lot goes into the start of schools. It doesn't happen by chance, and I'm sure there are a million other things that I'm not even aware of that are critical to the start of school. And so for that, I'm grateful and just wanted to acknowledge all of the hard work of our district staff over the last several weeks. All right. In addition, there's been a lot of Build 220 going on. We've tried to schedule this multi-year project to not interfere or interrupt instruction as much as we possibly can, right? So summertime is like prime time for us to try to really get in and really do the heavy lifting with our construction projects. So on the screen here, the construction projects touch every school in the district. There are projects associated. So on the left, we have our Early Learning Center. While it's our newest facility, you can see that we are including, in addition to equipment in the building, safety and security features. And pictured here on the left is the transaction window, another security feature going in at our Early Learning Center. And then on the right, Lines Elementary School. This is the sensory room. All of our elementary schools are receiving a sensory room. Throughout the district, Lines was an important building for us to try to get in immediately upon students leaving. A lot of the construction is centered around renovating that entire upper floor for our STEM and art and additional classroom space. And so they've been hard at work. I know Dr. Halberg's been doing a good job of providing updates throughout the summer. Things are coming together. I know a lot of times construction looks like it has a long way to go. But I've been assured, we've been asking questions, we've been carefully monitoring it, and all of our partners have been saying that we're right on track, and there's a lot of activity going on in Lines in order to finish up our construction before the start of school. All right, next up, we have our sibling schools, North Barrington and Rose. Those are also under construction this summer. Pictured here is the STEM in this application is a courtyard addition. And so you start to see the new wall and roof start to take shape there. Again, I want to remind our board and community, this project was not intended to be able to be a full classroom addition in one summer. We do need more time. Construction will continue this fall and into the school year. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that.
Next up, $62 million of the $147 million referendum is Barrington High School. This is a multi-year project, so things have been coming on, online over time. Like last spring, we did a lot of the exterior spaces for our student use. We've also been under construction for the past year looking at interior spaces. Some of that referendum work really concentrated on providing health, lifetime fitness spaces rather than just team-based sports or large gymnasiums. So you can see the expansion to the weight room there pictured on the left. Renovating what used to be the main gym at Barrington High School, brought back to life, most recently used primarily for gymnastics. Now it's going to be our auxiliary gym. And then the upstairs at the back of the building being renovated from health classrooms to fitness studios and cardio rooms. Next slide, please. So I know this has been the talk of town all summer as we're gearing up, and I don't want to steal Mr. McWilliams' thunder. He will be presenting one of our discussion items tonight. It's about parking and driveways and the new expectations at Barrington High School. But very happy to see pictured here is asphalt on the ground in that picture on the left rather than dirt or rock. So a lot of work was done just in the last week. If you drove by early last week, the asphalt was not poured yet. So very impressed with the amount of work that's been able to be accomplished in a very short time. More on that to come. Pictured on the right, one of the things that we identified was improving our health services at Barrington High School and relocating that. And the reason I put these two pictures together is by intentional design. We wanted to have our health services located in closer proximity to emergency vehicles arriving at the high school campus. And so that moved in a location that's now more accessible. So if we need to get emergency services into the building and even just getting in and out of the building for various needs. Next slide, please, Janine. All right, front atrium addition, it's really starting to take shape. This has been under construction for over a year, the large addition along Main Street. You can start to see now the interior part of that pictured on the left starting to take shape. That's actually from the upper level, because this is a two-story addition being added onto the building. And then on the right, being able to really see that exterior facade start to take shape. This, like those courtyards at North Barrington and Rose, will continue. It's not fully opening to our students this fall. This will continue with construction with the start of the school year. And then I think I have one more. So this is not a Bill 220 project, but you will recall we've been working on considering a flexible learning space for our seniors this year as a new programming, and with that came some light renovation to the high school. This is the former senior locker bank pictured on the left. You can see how they reimagined that space and turned it into instructional classroom area, but flexible. It's not fully vetted out exactly how we're going to use that space, bringing in flexible furniture. I do want to comment on the right. That's actually last week we hosted an evening meeting with our students and parents that are going to participate in the program. And I do want to comment just briefly, I'm a big believer in getting our students involved and having student voice and feedback shape all kinds of things that we do as a school district. And I really want to compliment our teachers, administrator, and team for really taking that to heart and really getting our students involved. Last week, they were really designing the courses and where they wanted to have the studies emphasized and really help shaping that along with our teachers and educators, and it was really powerful. And I look forward to the name of the program because they're also they brainstorm some names to the program, so I look forward to hearing about that. Okay, so that concludes the portion on construction. Let me shift gears to enrollment and staffing. We continue to monitor our enrollment and staffing needs. As of this morning, I'm happy to report 98% of our families have completed online registration requirements, so we're getting close to having everybody fully complete the registration process. Majority of our sections, you have the sheet in front of you, for our elementary classes, they are within or under guidelines set by the district. And I do want to mention, we were, if you recall, in July, we were really monitoring rows in that second grade. And those sections, as families have continued to register, both sections actually were up to 27 students, which is the upper end of our fifth grade guidelines. And so we have added another section, 2 rows since our last meeting, to again, make sure that our class sizes are within guidelines, okay? Okay, next slide. As mentioned, I actually found a picture of Sandra and Steve attending the new educator orientation, having a chance to actually meet and get to know our newest staff members. So we had 43 new staff members participate in our new educator orientation, getting them acclimated, providing support, making sure they have all of those initial questions answered for a successful start. And we'll continue to support them throughout the year, but it was a really nice week, multiple days, lots of training, lots of activities. So I really do want to, again, a special shout out to Jordan Anderson for all of her work. She coordinates a multi-day event for our teachers that is, I think, just top-notch and first class. So thank you to Jordan. Next slide. We are fortunate to have Kurt Weisenberger being recommended tonight. He will be on the personnel report as our recommendation for our interim associate principal at Barrington High School. You know, I think since our last meeting, we learned that Dr. Heath McFall, our associate principal, accepted a principal position at Hersey High School in District 214, and we wish he the best in his new endeavors, and certainly appreciate all the leadership he provided to our school district the last several years. Kurt, however, is a talented teacher and coach at Barrington High School. And in addition to his contributions in the classroom as a social studies teacher and coach, he's also shared his leadership talents and abilities with us in the past, serving as our summer school principal for a number of years. So I think this is going to be a really nice fit for Kurt to step in to this new position and continue to show his leadership and support for Barrington High School. Next, it was a busy summer. I think the governor signed over 90 pieces of legislation this summer. Just a couple that I thought were noteworthy. We've had a lot of discussion. We've been studying our literacy program in Barrington 220 as part of our curriculum review process. And of those sessions offered this summer, many are about making sure our teachers receive professional development around our literacy programming. The governor also just signed a bill this summer that by January 31st of 2024, he wants a comprehensive literacy plan and a cohesive plan throughout the state. So our plan lines up well with that, and we will help participate and help shape the plan for how we're going to provide literacy instruction here in Barrington and throughout the state. And then the other piece of, I think this was about a week and a half ago, the new Public Act for school districts requiring full-day kindergarten. We've certainly talked about that as a district and a community. It's part of our strategic plan. The governor now has made it official that all schools will be required to offer a full-day kindergarten program by 27-28 school year. So a couple pieces of legislation I thought were important to share. And then lastly, student representatives at board meetings. You know, this is our last summer board meeting, so our students come back next week. And I just want to remind the board that we've adjusted the format for our student participation at our meetings to now incorporate not only our high school representative, but we're going to start having our elementary, middle, and high school students attend our board meetings. And I think this will provide a more well-rounded perspective of all the amazing things that are going on in our school district, and really demonstrating the power of us being a unit district and getting our students here. And so Grove will be the first student we will welcome next week. So stay tuned for that.
We better be ready.
Yes. And that concludes my report unless there's any questions. Okay.
None? All right.
Thank you.
Are we, uh-oh.
Are we back
Tell
on?
me, are we back on? Do we know? Board
I think
docs?
so.
It's
Yeah.
looking good.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of gone up and down, but
It's kind of
Let me
going
see.
I was
down.
able to
Okay.
deploy it.
I'm afraid to touch anything.
I think it's working now.
Seems to be working.
I think it works.
give me one moment and I can at least get us back up on the board then.
Okay. All right, so next up is informational reports. Do we have any questions or comments about the informational reports? Okay, hearing none. I'm just refreshing my screen here. Okay, so board committee reports. I know we have had several committees meet. And we're going to start.
So facilities, thank you for the warm welcome to the facilities committee. So Katie and I are the board reps. There were a few things we got updated on. We got updated on the summer projects, which most of them are completed successfully. In a few, we are waiting for supplies. So, but things will still happen, school will still start, and everything is in working order, but things are being updated. So that was pretty good news. And we also talked about the Barrington Transitions Program update. There's been construction on the new space, and it's going to be all ready to go for school, and I hear it's very amazing. So that's good news, too. Another thing we talked about was long-term facilities planning. So this has come up over time that Dr. Vine and his team are working on giving us a longer plan of when things need updating and fixing and repairing, and to give us a better budgeting plan. So that's in the works. We will see it sometime in the future. But a lot of that we do, it's just not a formalized plan. And so I think that was 1, 2, 3, 4. Our calendar is still in the making. We had a suggested calendar, but watch in the next few weeks for what we will agree to when we get our schedules organized, so.
Oh, for your meeting dates?
For our meeting dates,
Okay.
yeah. And, and mostly everyone wanted to hear about referendum work, so thank you, Dr. Winkleman, for giving those updates. And,
Sure.
when we hear more later.
So I have a couple reports. I'm on the Finance Committee with Steve, and I don't want to, again, take away from what's going to happen soon. We're going to be talking about our tentative budget, but the audit occurred this summer. It's still ongoing, but they were on site in July, and there's still little things that they have to kind of clean up, so therefore we don't have a final audit and probably won't for at least another month. But it sounds like everybody got along very well, and it was successful in terms of cooperation. As we're going to hear very soon, fiscal year '24 tentative budget, and even what was presented to our committee was 2 weeks ago, already there's changes happening because, it's kind of a moving document, shall we say. So it's, it's all ongoing. So what, we thought might be a little bit of a surplus, now maybe is going to be a deficit. Not that we would ever have a deficit in the budget, but there's still uncertainty, including the fact that we have ongoing BEA negotiations, which is definitely going to have an impact on the budget. And we're hoping we can get that settled within the next couple weeks. So we look forward to hearing what Dr. Vine's going to be sharing with us. I was also part of the referendum committee, and I don't want to repeat what's been said already or steal any of the thunder from our high school principal coming soon. But it's all very exciting that, we are still, as best as we can be, on time and on budget. And, what is left, people have seen some of what's happened already because we have a lot that is completed, but what is left is North Barrington and Rose specifically, and then, of course, ongoing at the high school for at least another year. But I'm just so excited for everybody to see the athletic wing and just the state-of-the-art facilities that we have. And, something that wasn't mentioned, but I'm just going to mention briefly, is half of the bathrooms have been renovated in the high school, and the other half are going to be renovated next summer. But our students deserve, up-to-date working bathrooms. So this is very exciting. New elevator in the athletic wing, which will increase access, which we all are, we all think is very important. The new nurses office, which we saw, which, as a health care person, I'm very excited. It's, up to date and looks beautiful. And again, not to steal any thunder, but as we start thinking about the parking lots, we want to kind of reframe ourselves here. And instead of south and west lot, we're talking about the main lot on Main Street and the Hart lot on Hart Avenue. So start rethinking, and then Steve's going to present more in terms of, how we're going to be looking at car access and everything. And then one other thing that's still pending is the culinary. It's not going to be done, the culinary section. It's not going to be done at the beginning of the school year. We still have the old culinary facilities, so the classes will meet somewhere, but I'm looking forward to having them coming to the new section, and I'm even more looking forward to having an open house there where we can maybe sample some of the great work that they do. But the Commons Edition and the culinary area still have work to be done. And the bottom line from all of what we've done, besides up-to-date facilities, is safety and security. I want the community to know that every school has been touched. A lot of times it's behind the scenes and it's under the floors or in the roofs or in the walls, but safety and security was one of our major focuses over the course of this referendum, and that definitely was taken care of, and we definitely tried very hard to make that a high priority. And lastly is the Fine and Performing Arts Center, which, it's kind of TBD, to be determined. The stakeholders have been involved, and we're looking forward to hearing what is going to be presented over the next month or two, and we're just so excited about the possibilities there. And my third report, earlier this month, I went to the Ed Red Legislative Breakfast. It was phenomenal. I was the only 220 person there, but so many of the big districts were represented, and it was just great to hear the other districts and what they're going through. And it was even more exciting to have all these legislators, everybody, we had at least 2 legislators at every table, and just kind of pick their brain and share our concerns and share our priorities. And at least the legislators that they chose to include, and there were at least 25 of them, were very pro-education and very pro-hearing what we have to say, and really want to try to help us and make us more as a team. So I think, again, to piggyback on what Dr. Winkleman said, this the state of Illinois is very friendly to education, and we really want to take advantage of that. Some of the things we talked about, the big issue, maybe we've been lucky here in Barrington, but staff shortages. A lot of districts are having trouble getting teachers and bus drivers and auxiliary personnel to man the schools. There's a couple districts that have delayed the start of school just because they don't have bus drivers to pick up the kids. So I think we're lucky that we're going to start on time next week, and knock on wood, our staff shortages aren't necessarily affecting, these staff shortages in Illinois are not necessarily affecting us. Another big issue, which isn't touching Barrington quite as much as some of the other districts, is the influx of immigrants and where the money's coming to help educate them. And it's not just the education, but it's where to house them, where to feed them, where to clothe them, because they can't come to school if they aren't fed and well-rested and clothed. So it's a huge issue, which, again, the state is looking into, and there isn't a simple answer. But we're having an influx both from Ukraine and that part of Europe, but also a lot of Spanish-speaking from some of South America and Central America that are seeking either asylum or are moving in with relatives and friends in the area. And then other things that we talked about included ESSER funding and the fact that we're losing our ESSER funds, and how do we replace those funds so we can continue offering the high quality that we do. And there was another strong discussion about social emotional learning and what the state can do to help us so that we can continue doing the job we're doing. So all this legislative stuff as board members is very important, and I think we all should continue to try to stay involved and stay on top of what's happening in the states. So thank you.
Any other committee reports? All right. Let's move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I'll remind the board that there's a revised personnel report. We also have minutes from our last meeting on July 11th, both open and closed, and we have several finance reports. We have the July reports for wage and payroll, treasurer's reports, revenue and expenditures, and August reports were the bill list. Any questions or comments on those? All right, let's do a roll call.
Sandra Bradford?
Yes.
Leah Colister-Lazari?
Yes.
Diana Clapton?
Yes.
Steve Wang?
Yes.
Katie Karam?
Yes.
Erin Chandang?
Yes.
Barry Altschuler?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
I think Kurt Weisenberger was here but needed to leave. So normally at this point, we would give him a congratulations, but a big congratulations to Kurt for joining our high school team.
For band practice, so that's where you had to go back
Look at that. He's going right back to be with our kids.
Going back to work.
Marching band.
All right,
Oh, man.
hopefully we can bring him to another board meeting and some high school updates, and he can have a chance to interact with the
Interact
too.
with- Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Okay, the board will now consider and vote on the recommendation that a notice to remedy be adopted regarding Mr. Reynaldo Avila, discussed in the board's previous closed session meeting. Do we have a motion from a board member to adopt the resolution authorizing this notice to remedy?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Board member Carlos Lazari has moved, and board member Katie Karam has seconded the motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the notice to remedy regarding Mr. Reynaldo Avila, discussed this evening during closed session. May we please have a roll call vote?
Barry Altshuler,
Yes.
Leah Colister-Lazari,
Yes.
Katie Karam,
Yes.
Erin Chandang,
Yes.
Sandra Bradford,
Yes.
Steve Wang,
Yes.
Diana Clapton.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next up, as I mentioned in my report, we have our board norms and communication expectations. Do we have a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Aaron and Barry, okay. Board, does anybody have any questions or comments on what was sent out a couple weeks ago? I guess, I don't know if we want to read through all of them here, because we've got a
Right.
couple pages worth of norms and communication expectations. I'll just let the community know that we kind of restructured them this year in our workshop to be a little bit more comprehensible. Should have practiced this a little bit. Easier to read and give direction. We have a purpose. We have board president's responsibilities, board member responsibilities, how we are to conduct our meetings, communicating with the staff, communicating with the media, social media, communicating with the community. We have all of these things addressed. It's a 3-page norm and communication expectations that we will publish, should we all approve them today. I'm really proud of the work that we did, so I appreciate everybody having the conversation and being open, and you'll see a restructure. If you've been studying these in the past, you'll see the new format, and we put a lot of thought and time into this. So again, I just appreciate everybody's cooperation. Is there anything anybody would like to add to what I have already stated?
I'm just wondering, so this whole piece will be available to the community once we pass it, right?
We can,
The whole-
we can post it.
I just
Yeah.
think
I
they
don't
might
think-
want to see it.
Yep,
Yeah.
no problem.
I don't think you guys want me to read 3 pages, though.
No.
Hopefully good enough overview. All right, really, no other comments?
Okay.
Awesome. All right, let's do a roll call.
Leah Colister-Lazari,
Yes.
Barry Altshuler,
Yes.
Diana Clapton,
Yes.
Erin Chandang,
Yes.
Sandra Bradford,
Yes.
Katie Karam,
Yes.
Steve Wang.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you again, board. That was a good workshop, and I look forward to our next one.
Hey, real quickly, Sandra.
Yeah.
This just popped in my head. For the next board workshop, do we have a start time yet?
Did we publish it? I can't remember if we published a start time or not.
Sorry, didn't mean to throw you off.
I think
No.
we-
Because it's right before the board meeting. so I
Yeah,
thought
I
they were
think
gonna
we
do it.
said an hour or 2 before.
Yeah.
We're gonna look.
Sorry.
It's a good question.
It's a great question.
Did
It's coming
literally
up.
popped in my head just as you
That's
said
the
that.
Only month
Sure, we
away.
said 1
September,
I'm
September
pretty sure we
19th.
said-
19th is the one that we
Pretty
earmarked.
sure we said an hour earlier.
So it would be 4:30?
Let me know if that's an issue. Is that what we published on here? Well, the start time of the meeting remains 7. Our start time for close would be
It's an hour
4:30.
Okay.
So again, for the community, that would be, we would be doing a self-evaluation, self-check on how we're operating
That's the 19th, correct?
on September 19th.
September 19th was the one that we had identified, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so one more action item, again, coming out of our workshop, is that we wanted to reaffirm the board equity statement. Everybody should have the equity statement in front of them. I thought it might be a good thing just for me to read through.
Yeah.
But let's see if let's get a motion on the table first. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
the affirmation?
Second.
Second, okay.
We're a team tonight.
Oh,
So we made no changes, so it's the same equity statement that's on our website right now. Let me just read, I'm going to read through it. I'm going to read through everything except for that last paragraph on why commitment statement. Because you'll hear me make a comment on that in a moment. So we recognize, embrace, and defend the identities, abilities, and voices of our diverse school community. As a Board of Education, we value the multiple perspectives of our students, parents, faculty, staff, and administration. We commit ourselves to support an equitable and inclusive learning environment for all stakeholders. The Board of Education will direct the administration to operationalize its commitment to advancing racial equity. We will encourage the use of high-impact and district-wide strategies that address day-to-day organizational culture, build institutional capacity, leverage our workforce, apply community engagement practices, and focus on internal processes and procedures that eliminate systemic barriers. The Board of Education will be equitable, inclusive, transparent, respectful, and impactful in how we serve and engage with students, parents, faculty, staff, and the administration. To be clear, hate has no home in Barrington 220 schools, and harassment, bullying, or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Okay? I didn't read that last paragraph because I'm going to recommend that we pull that section off of there. It just says why do we have a commitment statement, and then gives an answer to why, but I don't think it's really part of our equity statement.
Correct.
Right. That's true.
I think it just got put on there because that's how it was presented to us. That's why we would need one.
I actually took that straight from the website. Would you like that removed from the website?
Well, let's see
We'll see.
if we approve that or not.
All right.
we could just strike the question part, why a commitment statement, and then end with that sentence. I think it's a worthy sentence.
I think it helps explain, why an equity statement. I don't know that we need to have a why, but it does do part of the why.
Well, and I would suggest instead of wants to, if we end with that sentence, we say the Board of Education fully understands and appreciates the richness and diversity of who we are as a school community while recognizing a history of racial inequities that have taken place within our country and school system. So I would strike the wants to and change to fully understands and appreciates. And then we could just end with that sentence. And make it a part of the equity statement.
What do we think, Board?
I
I
like
mean,
it.
it's always been there.
Yeah, but I don't think we need the lead-in for why commitment statement. I think we could just go right into
So
that
you would
sentence.
strike that also, right? The
Right,
why.
exactly, and we also strike why a commitment statement. So after will not be tolerated, we go into the Board of Education fully understands and appreciates.
I can support
What do you
that.
think about that? I like that.
Okay. Who motioned? I think there was, you seconded and.
Oh,
I second.
These two are.
Barry
Are you
was
agree with the
first, Aaron
changes.
was second.
Agreeable to the changes?
Yeah, I agree with the
You
changes.
agree with the changes?
I agree with myself.
Okay.
Just a real quick history. This board did not write this, but a prior board did and spent a lot of time, as the community may recall, kind of wordsmithing this together. And so I appreciate everybody taking the time to hear me read through that. And is there any questions or comments on what else is in here?
I don't know if I have a question as much as a comment. I know in the past when we've affirmed the equity statement, there have been questions from community members with regards to, well, actually the why, Aaron. But to that end, what I do want to take away from this and make it clear is that we as a board, and hopefully if I misspeak, you guys let me know, but I want to emphasize the word all here. We support all stakeholders, and that's the purpose of this statement. Everyone, doesn't matter whom. And then along with that too, I know there's sometimes concern with what this means in ensuring equity. And I think it's fair to say that we're not going to be in a position where we're trying to change any standards. If anything, we're just going to increase standards and increase our high level of delivery for all our stakeholders. So that's kind of how I take this. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything opposite, but I think that's important to state for anybody who has a question about why.
think it reinforces our commitment to inclusion and
Sure.
to serving the entire district, right, and all
Yeah.
of our students.
Exactly, everyone. And again, maintaining that high level of quality that we are known for.
Okay, good. I was going to, let me see if I can find it. Just a reminder of what the equity committee is going to focus on this year, right? Maybe you can help me out, Dr. Byrne, what, that might help too,
Yes, so-
just to reinforce.
In terms of our district equity team,
Mm-hmm.
we are going to structure the meeting in terms of our strategic planning, priority areas of inclusive education, which focuses on the priority objectives this year of hiring practices and professional development as it relates to the implementation of the revised Danielson framework, as well as the priority area of health and well-being, as more specifically it relates to social emotional learning. We are also going to be really honing in on the equity journey continuum as it relates to the Illinois State Board of Education strategic plan and making sure that the work of the district equity team is aligned to that as well. And in terms of the structure of the actual meetings, making sure that we have representation from our buildings and all of our stakeholder groups within the district and from throughout the community and of course.
And you also mentioned a family engagement piece too, right, in the last presentation?
Yeah, so we actually just sent out a feedback form to all stakeholders within the district. And at the last time we checked it, Dr. Fuller, we had almost 1,000 responses.
What?
So we're
Wow.
getting some really great feedback in terms of what could family engagement look like. And of course, the equity work is a piece of that, what we're seeing feedback on.
Awesome.
Excellent. Okay. All right, if there's no other comments or questions, let's do a roll call.
And this is to approve it as amended, right?
To
As
approve
amended.
As amended.
We will strike why a commitment statement question mark, and also in that last paragraph, the words wants to.
Yep,
And then add S's
And add
to
S's to-
understand and appreciate.
Thank you.
Understands and appreciates. Got you. Thank you. Okay. Erin Chandang,
Yes.
Sandra Bradford,
Yes.
Katie Karam,
Yes.
Diana Clapton,
Yes.
Barry Altschuler,
Yes.
Steve Wang,
Yes.
Leah Colliser-Lazari.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. So let us move into our discussion items. The very much anticipated. Mr.
Yep.
McWilliams, will you please share with us
Yes.
more on Barrington High School parking and traffic flow?
Steve, would you like me to join you up there?
Sure.
Awesome. I'll just
The more
comment
the
while you
merrier.
guys are settling in that I've heard a lot from the community members just on how beautiful the parking lot looks and how much they appreciate it not just being a straight asphalt.
Yeah.
I can't believe how many comments I've had. I'd only seen it in the dark.
I have heard the same. The landscaping, the aesthetics, the design have been, I think, received very well in the community.
Okay, so this is the most magical time of the year. I would say that it's maybe one of our colleagues' favorite times of the year. You may notice that I just got my back-to-school haircut a few hours ago. All ready to go.
Nice.
Was quick. But we are really excited. The band's out marching, the teams are out practicing, and there is a ton of buzz around the school itself. We're trying to keep the students out of the new space, get our occupancy permit tomorrow so we can open it up, and in the few areas that are open, there are a lot of oohs and ahs, and it's a really exciting time. So thanks to the board and the community for supporting all of the upgrades that we're rolling out here this fall, and can't wait to get into the spaces with you and use them, not just cut a ribbon, but let's go in and actually and use them. So tonight we're going to focus on traffic flow at the high school. I'm going to preface this presentation with a little bit of a side note. So we are still 1 year away from completion with our parking structures. So one of the things that we're trying to attempt to do this year is transition from our old parking format to what the parking formats and traffic flow formats will look like in subsequent years. Instead of doing several transitions, we just felt like, you know what, let's just do one this year and try to attack some of those major impacts. It actually helps us with safety and traffic flow. That's why we thought it was good. So,
And when he said structures, he didn't mean we're building parking garages or anything. It was really just referring to our parking facilities.
correct. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the major changes for this year. One that has served us well this year, I'll use my arrow, I don't know if they can see this at home, but our Main Street entrance, the Lake Hook Road entrance, if you remember back this time last year, the presentation was all about the Hart Road Bridge being closed and how we were going to maneuver around the campus. Remember that? Try not to.
Thank you.
We were able to get a special permit because of construction on our campus and because of construction around our campus that allowed us to use that as an entrance and exit. As we transition into the school year, magically tomorrow, that permit goes away and the ability to exit out the front entrance onto Lake Hook Road or Main Street goes away. So we have to redirect our traffic to address that. The weather kind of stalled us a little bit on the Hart Road exit. There's a new Hart Road exit. If you drive by where the old tennis courts were, this afternoon, they put the sidewalks in. So the concrete work is done around there. The next step is to do some backfilling and then some asphalt work. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that will be available as an entrance and an exit on the first day of school. If it's not, we'll be okay. It'll take a little bit more patience until it does open. But if you remember last year, we had Hart Road Bridge out and they were doing all of that grinding and construction on Lake Hook Road. We made it through that. We can make it through this. We'll be just fine. It'll just take a little bit more patience on our end. And then as we go towards the signalized intersection on Hart Road, this is an area where we've adjusted to what the parking lot will be designed to do in subsequent years. So since 2000, 2001, when this parking lot opened up, there was a three-way stop, four-way intersection. The new design that is implemented next year actually turns that into really just a two-way intersection, turning into the Hart Road lot and turning out of the Hart Road lot. And there's a feature that we refer to as the lollipop, which is kind of a half turn here or a turnabout that is really designed just like a turnabout that you'd run into on Route 47 is my favorite. There's a couple of them where they try to keep the flow moving and keep traffic moving at a safe pace, but it just allows the movement to continue. So we'll highlight that when the picture is a little bit bigger. And as Dr. Altschuler mentioned, we did change our nomenclature. I get a little science in there, a little nomenclature.
Love it.
We did change our nomenclature a little bit about what the parking lots are. So north, south, east, west is very confusing unless you live on the campus, but our roads and landmarks are not. So the main parking lot or the Main Street parking lot is now in the front. The Hart Road parking lot was the west lot. We're going to refer to that as the Hart Road lot. And then the stadium lot, because it's next to the stadium, will be referred to as the stadium. Something else to emphasize here is, as we did this design, we were very cognizant of trying to separate students that are walking from buses, from pickups, from drop-offs, from student drivers. So one of the features that is part of this parking lot is we have actually closed the back parking lot, and actually probably next fall at this time, there'll be an active gate here that you must have credentials to be able to pass, to be able to get around to the back of the school. And the purpose for that is, this is our pickup and drop off for buses before school and after school. And perhaps even more importantly, because we can control that access, there is quite a bit of student movement on this back road because of the new fields, the tennis courts, the stadium, the Bronco Way, the walkout to Field of Dreams. So we just felt like we needed to reduce the amount of overall traffic that was on that road so that it's designated for really student use. So we are going to implement that this year and strongly encourage and incentivize parents and students and staff members to use the front drive that goes around the new Main Street lot, connects at the corner of the West Wing on the Hart Road, and then uses the lollipop to exit the campus. So now if we drill down a little bit deeper as we get into the discussions about the different lots, I'm going to try to talk about maybe a couple of different facets. Who's parking there? How do they function before school and after school, during arrival and dismissal? So what can parents expect on Monday morning when they come to school, or what can students expect? So much like last year, we would like to limit the access of the front entrance off of Main Street to just buses, school personnel, and deliveries that have to get back to the loading dock. So much like last year, we will definitely have personnel up here reminding parents that we would like them to go all the way to Hart Road and use the Hart Road entrances on campus and do pick up and drop off in that area. Also, one of the things that we want to try to emphasize is this is not a good spot to stop and drop students off, right? So Detective Eve Gallo will be out there to make sure that if that is happening, that we're moving people along. And the reason for that is, I know it's convenient, it's just not safe. There's a lot going on in this area, and we want to make sure that we keep that going. So
We'll have some ongoing construction during the year and it's next summer. And that lot that is directly adjacent to the entrance off of Main Street is construction only. And so we will also have some construction traffic still throughout the year that will be going in and parking there as well.
So just walked it this afternoon. The pedestrian corridor or walks from the main entrance and the main part of the school are all in place and ready to go. So this will be a significant pedestrian path. One more reason to not have drivers going around the back of the building. It gives us a safe crossing area here. A significant change to the front lot is this will become our main parking spot for staff. It will not facilitate all of our staff parking, but it will significantly support staff parking. During the business operations or operational hours, visitor parking is available, and special needs parking is available also in front here. They're not up yet. They will be this week. We have done a significant amount of work developing wayfinding signs and branded signs throughout the campus. So when you come on campus, we have signs that will call out the auditorium, physical education, drop-off, pickup on all sides of campus. So it doesn't matter where you enter, there are ways to, or arrows that will direct you around. So I think that's a significant improvement from what we've had in the past, especially for those that aren't familiar with the campus that would end up parking in the front and they really wanted to be over by the stadium. So this will be I think we've thought of all of the angles, but this will be a good trial for us this year. And we might see some corrections or some things that might be a little bit better if we move a sign or if we change the verbiage so that it's a little bit clearer. And then we'll permanently set those when we do the final parking lot renovations next year. Just another little added feature that we put in for those of you that have been following referendum. We've got a small little drop-off pickup area here that is designated for emergency vehicles and for special needs buses or students that need special lifts and such. The purpose of this, or the reason this was put there, is it's really close to the nurse's office, student services area, so a lot of the facilities that may need that space. We've also designated some security parking up in front for our police liaison and such. So this is a reserved area up there. We will have that clearly marked so that visitors and staff members don't go into that area. So as we follow ourselves, work our way around to the Hart Road lot. So the Hart Road lot will mainly be a student parking lot. As we've done the count of spots, we will probably have to reserve about 50 or so spots in the west lot for this year because the front lot, the Lincoln lot as we refer to it, is being used for construction parking. And we just need to have a little bit of latitude with that as we're finishing up the construction projects. Being a scientist and wanting to prove a theory, we have an opportunity to prove our theory on Thursday and Friday morning that we can fit all of our staff in the front parking lot and that we will only need a few spots in the west parking lot. So on Thursday, when staff come in, we will get a clear indication of how tight are we and do we need to add more spots or take a few spots away. But I think we're in a really good spot in terms of that. Something to emphasize here, I know there's been some questions about parking. We've got this great big new parking lot in the front, and there's this rumor that there's a waiting list. And I don't know that the term like speech matters, right? The term waiting list does not really measure up to what it is. So we're thinking that we've got about 20 students wanting to park in the west parking lot that we won't be able to accommodate in the Hart Road lot. Sorry, it'll take some time to get used to it.
Keep them honest, Dave. I appreciate it.
So while we're trying to determine that, there are certainly spots in Field of Dreams for those individuals to park. The issue becomes how do we work the rotation? So in the past, we've had an A, B, C rotation. Everybody spends a third of the year up in Field of Dreams. We won't need to do that rotation. So we've got to figure out what that rotation might look like, or if we even need the rotation at all. We might be able to fit all senior parkers that are interested in the Hart Road lots without any issue. Or maybe we need to build in a little bit more slack during the winter months, and we only need to change that maybe November, December, January, or December, January when we're worried about snow removal and we need to have a place to store snow. So that's something that we will determine, but as it looks right now, our students should be able to park on campus. That waiting list is really about, do we need to put them out at Field of Dreams?
This area is where the bulk of the remaining renovations for parking lots will happen a year from now.
So shifting gears a little bit to parents, guardian pickup and drop off. So once the construction is done on Hart Road, there's an entrance and an exit here, and obviously an entrance and an exit by the traffic signal up there. So what we're actually following the same pattern that we did last year, where we're asking parents to really queue up into the drive around the west parking lot here, the Hart Road parking lot, formerly known as the west parking lot. And we're trying to guide them to door 34. This is our main student drop-off area for buses and pickup and drop-off. Something that I want to emphasize here, and we will have people out there to help with this, it's important that people continue to pull forward on the driveway there, and also that we, this is a one-way street that we need to keep flow open. So we can't have twosies parking on the road here. We only have spots for queuing up one car up against the curb. So we will work with our campus attendants and security personnel to help people to kind of learn that pattern as we get started next week. But it's really important that people are willing to listen and follow directions in terms of how we queue cars up for pickup and drop off. More of a significant change is right here. I said we'd zero in on this. This is that intersection that is a 1, 2, 3-way stop with a go here. For those of you that have been on campus picking up students, you'll notice that we've got this area coned in. So as you come in from Hart Road, you're required to turn into the Hart Road parking lot or go straight up into the Lollipop. We will continue to have that when the school year starts. individuals turning out of the Hart Road lot will need to turn into the Lollipop. And what we're going to do here in the next day or so is we're actually going to remove the stop signs that are right here so that there isn't a need to stop at the speed table, so that we've got flow right up to the lot. Okay, right now there's a stop sign here. So we'll put pedestrian crossing signs there, and we'll definitely monitor that just to try to make the flow there. Now, the other piece is once this construction is done down here by the old tennis courts, this is going to be a really nice exit. So individuals coming down the center of the Hart Road parking lot will be able to turn, will be able to turn right and then make a right exit out onto Hart Road. So they'll have a couple of different ways to exit the campus. Emphasizing once again, we want all students and parents, guardians to use the Hart Road entrances and exits during arrival and dismissal. So from roughly 8 o'clock in the morning until about 8:30, maybe a little bit before that. And then from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 3:45. Just plan on using those areas. And then finally, we've got the stadium parking lot. The stadium parking lot will be designated as staff parking only. And that's really no significant change in terms of that. Okay. Any questions?
I know it's not shocking, I've got questions. Okay, love it. But here's my question.
Yes.
So last year, you came in, you could come in here, or up there, and then you'd come down the middle, and it was one direction going this way. Are you at all concerned, I'm talking for parent pickup here, are you at all concerned having parents coming in this way, and then meeting at that Lollipop area?
Right here?
Yeah.
Up here?
Up here, yeah. And then that's all gonna back down and go where?
So this here coming in,
Yep,
yes and no.
okay,
I've seen it function before.
okay,
So this was kind of a new thing for us 2 years ago. It was a COVID modification that we did, but this was open for as long as I can remember. And it takes a little bit of time, to get the flow going, but once people get into the swing of things, it does tend to function pretty well. Remember that this is kind of a yield right here too.
right. But if parents line up here for sports pickup,
Yes.
they don't leave any room, onesies, and then if you come in on that Lollipop, no one's letting you in, right? Or, because traffic's moving up. So I think you're right, it's gonna take people, but so those cars there need to understand to yield to the people coming from, so I do think people need to grasp that concept, because they haven't had you before.
We're going to have to do a little bit of education on the first
Yes.
day of school and the second day, but yeah, we will have to be out there to help. And I think we've got a plan to place some school personnel at some, I would say, some pinch points or some areas we're concerned about. This is one where I think we need to keep an eye on just because of pedestrian traffic.
Yeah.
This is an area where we want to look to, again, this is a lot of student pedestrian traffic, and this is another area where we're going to have to keep an eye out. So we have stationed some people and mapped out where we want some people to just keep an eye on things, and hopefully it's not real active. It probably is the first day, So, you saw me out there last year.
Oh, I did.
And, it took a little
I was
bit of
like,
active. It took a little bit of active, but after a couple of days, people start to get the rhythm. And
Well, and I think students being able to exit the other way is gonna be so much better, because
Yeah.
that is a huge conflict right there. That's
We'll have
great.
some extra help in the first few days. B&G folks and some others will be out to also
Yeah.
help get folks adjusted to the new routine.
I don't not like the Lollipop, to be clear. It's really convenient when you come in from that entrance.
No, but monitoring when those two things come together and having personnel there to help with
It
that,
is a
it's
little-
gonna be necessary. We know that, yeah, that's a good point.
like double parking, yes.
And then people pull into they
Yeah,
won't
or-
be handicapped anymore, will it? Because people pull in there, which bugs me.
It is for now. It
Okay.
is for now. So in the final rendering or the final version of the parking lot, that changes next year.
They go over
Actually
by the
widens a
stadium
little
for
bit
us?
too, yeah.
That whole circle, as Dr. Fine pointed out, this whole Hart Road parking lot area that's next summer's work, that whole lollipop gets widened to accommodate more traffic through
Yeah,
there.
okay. Thank you. That was it.
I have a newbie freshman parent question. So there are activity buses, right, at the high school?
Correct,
Is
there
that
are.
around 5 o'clock?
There's
Is
a set around 5 o'clock, 4:45, and there's another set just after 6.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Do the buses and does parent pickup, does that all happen at the same place, or how does that work?
So bus
They're not-
pickup after school is back here and maybe a little bit of overflow.
For activity buses as well?
So activity buses, my druthers are that it's down here near the athletic area. So we're going to try, this is a change in procedure for us in that we're gonna try to keep all buses in the back parking lot. So that's the goal to start off with. We've spoken with the bus company. I'm just trying to feel them out a little bit, and unless something comes up that's unexpected, I would anticipate that we're gonna have pickup back here. We designed the building, and we designed the infrastructure to have a covered vestibule right here, so that students could wait for the bus right here for the activity bus or for sports or for an activity.
So parent pickup for activities shouldn't get in the way of the
It should
activity
not.
buses? Because parents would theoretically pick up at the Hart Road lot / lollipop.
Correct, and that's exactly why we want to put them in the back. There was some conflict, there was some bus parent conflict up there.
Yeah.
There was, wasn't
There
there?
Yes, because if you didn't get out before the activity buses, then you got stuck there.
Oh.
I mean, for like a couple minutes, so, you know.
So I have a question. A week from Friday is a football game. Will there still be an availability to use the Hager exit to get out of the football game? It's just, since we can't come out the main street anymore, people who park in the main parking lot, will there still be that opening to the, Hager Road, that detour or whatever that you guys open up during football games?
So we are going to close that completely.
Okay, so that won't
The
be an option.
Walnut Grove community is not a big fan of opening that gate up for obvious reasons. But what we are intending to do, particularly during the bigger events, is we hire police to come over and they help with crossing here. And if there is a lot of traffic need, we can actually reverse the flow back out here.
Okay.
So we could use
That's
this
an
as an exit. So we'll look at that. That's generally a problem. First home football game, maybe back to school night.
It's just, usually a football game, the away team, their buses kind of block that area to the lollipop, and so, again, just parents trying to get out.
Yeah. So again, the buses for visiting teams will be placed up here as well.
Oh,
There's
okay, so you're gonna
There's a
move
little
them up
bump
there,
out
too.
here,
Okay.
right by the baseball field where they can actually park and they can get people by, or they can park in the back. But yeah, good.
Okay, so you're gonna
Yeah.
move them.
If you
oh,
recall, we
that's
added additional pedestrian sidewalks along that north side of the
Yes.
driveway there, adjacent to where the new fields went in, and that'll really help us to accommodate kids getting on and off the buses in that area.
helpful.
And shameless plug, we actually have a red and white scrimmage on Friday.
What's that?
We have the red and white scrimmage Friday that all are welcome to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So this
so
Friday,
that
too.
could test drive this.
Yeah, so we have, I believe it's JV at 5. The freshmen are at 6. Another shameless plug for freshmen that stay from freshman orientation, when new student orientation on Friday for the scrimmage, if they bring their ID, which they will get on Friday, to the Chuck Wagon. I think the principal might buy them a hot dog and a drink.
Oh.
Maybe a bag of chips.
Oh, okay.
Board members too.
Yeah, really?
And just to recall that drive around the east side where the buses will be, that drive will be for bus traffic, for buildings and grounds work, and for delivery vehicles. So we're not anticipating other staff going through there or families driving through that area at all.
On the other hand, again, maybe this is a what if, we talked about football game, when there's plays and things, can't parents park in back where the buses usually are? I mean, isn't that,
For
we're not gonna
handicaps?
open that up at all?
There's no
Hasn't
handicap
been.
accessible?
Because that's our really handicap accessible for all the grandparents and stuff, they park in those,
In those
you know,
spots.
Yeah.
So So I think that's something we are going to have to work through in terms of how we do this until we get the front atrium opened up and we get a better design there. One of the downsides of having these designated spots here, my observation is we've got performers that sneak back there in park or
You're absolutely
staff
right.
members. So what I want to try to do is really limit that. And if we've got, and we need some accessibility, our entrance is right over here. We need to work something out. So we'll work with Bridget on that and try to come up with a plan that works for that for sure.
Because now people park in the front and walk around the back, which isn't very safe either because the lighting's not good. There's
Yeah.
not any kind of, barrier. Even if there was like a little fence, you could walk inside.
And if you have
Safe.
accessibility issues, you're a
Right.
walker or something, you're not
Right,
gonna,
you
you're
don't
not
wanna
gonna
go
walk all
up the
that way.
stairs.
That new drop off too.
So one thing that I would say on this is that the new design actually does accommodate this much better, right? So remember that in that atrium, once it gets completed, we put in an entry ramp that goes into the cafeteria, which gets you much closer to the elevator. So it isn't what it was before, where it was kind of hard to traverse to that entrance, that accessible entrance. So once we get that done, I think that's something I'd be curious to see what those that are using the space how they feel about that.
Right, but we still need accessibility this year.
But that'll be a little bit later this year. So that will be.
So what's the
This
atrium
year.
timeframe?
Oh, right, but
Time for the
until
musical or
then.
whatever.
Until then.
Let's hear when. the
I think
atrium's-
the atrium will be delivered sometime this semester.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
That's kind of what we heard.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what we're expecting.
So we've got a new design, which I think is a very big positive for our community, right? We heard a lot about this particular aspect of the projects, part of the referendum. I think Steve and his team have really done a nice job really thinking through how to introduce this to our community. We're going to have additional messages go out to our high school students and parents, in addition to part of the presentation report that Samantha puts out. We'll put it in the Bronco Blast. We'll continue to, put information out so it's readily accessible. And then I also want to talk about, we have a really good, strong partnership with the Village of Barrington, and they've also committed to help us, in addition to our own personnel, just have our community get used to the new traffic flow and use of these lots. And they're going to help partner with us and provide some additional personnel and police officers to help us on those first few days of school as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. McWilliams or Dr. Bine?
We're excited.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Go Broncos, go Phillies.
Let's go.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Vine, maybe don't move.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, stick around.
Sarah gets to come up.
Yeah. So Sarah's coming up, and as we begin to talk about the tentative budget for the 23-24 school year, I'll just have you reflect to a year ago where I did some of the introduction. Sarah did a fair bit of the presentation. I think it's going to be a lot like the last presentation with Steve. I'm going to mostly just sit here, and we'll hopefully be very excited to share at the end. Or when was the last time that you saw me sitting up here for so long and saying so little? How
We're
awesome
waiting.
is that?
Everyone's excited.
Everyone's
We'll tell you after.
So with that, Sarah, take it away.
Wonderful, happy to do so. So thank you so much for having me. We are here to talk about the FY24 tentative budget. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about the legal requirements. We're going to talk about revenues and expenditures, and then we're going to do a budget summary. And this is going to be a little bit faster than the last one.
Bless you.
So of course, we're always considering our strategic planning. The budget is really the place where the connection between what we're doing in the classroom and the resources that our community is providing kind of comes together. So that's a big piece of the stewardship priority in our strategic plan. We always like to review the legal requirements for the budget adoption since we only do this once a year.
So our budget must be approved by the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, sorry. Prior to that, we will have our tentative budget placed on public display, so it'll be on our website and available here at the district office. And then we'll also do a public hearing, which is scheduled for September 5th. Our operating revenues look just as we would expect and as what we've seen in prior years. So our local revenue is, of course, our largest source, followed by state revenue, which is primarily made up of our grants, categorical reimbursement, and evidence-based funding. And then that's followed by our federal revenue, which is mostly grants and National School Lunch Program. It is a little higher than, I say it's a little higher than normal, but it's consistent with what we've seen the last couple of years with ESSER dollars. So in the FY24 budget, we have about $1 million in ESSER funding. So this will be the last tranche of ESSER money that we have. The ESSER 3 grant is ending in FY24. So at the end of September of 24, that'll be the end of the road on that one. So next year I'll come to you and say that federal revenue is a little bit low, and it'll be because we don't have any ESSER dollars. Our operating revenue is budgeted to increase 5.3%, which includes ESSER. Our local revenues are a little higher than normal, and they're benefiting from interest earnings and CPPRT, which we've of course been talking about for the last several months. CPPRT did come in, Illinois Department of Revenue released the CPPRT projections for FY24, and they did come in a little lower than we were anticipating, about $1.5 million. So
This was late breaking last Friday. So just a few business days ago.
Yes. So that will be an adjustment that we're making in our future final budget. Our state revenue mostly is made up of our categorical payments, which we're budgeting 3 current and 1 late, which is consistent with prior years. DSUB issuance is not included in this budget. And as I mentioned, our federal revenue is projected a little bit higher than normal for ESSER funding. Our non-operating revenues do not include any referendum bonds, as we issued our last piece of that in April of 2022. So we're not seeing any referendum dollars in our non-operating funds. And our operating revenues, also consistent with what we're used to seeing, salaries and benefits make up the majority of our expenditures. And then the next largest bucket is purchase services, which is mostly made up of transportation. The operating expenditures, as I mentioned, include ESSER funds. So here I have a breakdown of a comparison over last year with ESSER and without. So our salaries and benefits, of course, are our largest piece, as I mentioned. And what makes up the largest piece of our salaries are our teachers. As you know, we're still negotiating our contract. So any changes that are made as the result of bargaining will be included in our final budget. For purchase services, supplies, and capital, we're at 2.7% increase exclusive of ESSER funds over last year. And a little preview as we move into next year, just some things, we'll probably be talking about some higher expenditures in transportation as we move through that contract. We're bidding out food service, and in our next year we'll be experiencing a full year of the increased utilities, because we know that we're seeing a little bit higher expenses there. But we'll talk more about that in January, just a preview. In our non-operating expenditures, we have $38.4 million in referendum expenses. As you know, the timing of construction can change when we actually spend those dollars. And we're getting towards the end of our referendum spending, which is exciting because that means we're getting towards the referendum completion, which everybody's looking forward to. We'll have the majority of the projects done in FY24, but likely still have some expenses in FY25 as we finish those off. Since we issued our referendum bonds in prior fiscal years, our expenditures are going to exceed the revenues and will show a deficit in our fund balance, which is consistent with last year. So we've gotten our revenue in prior years and we continue to spend in future years. And just a reminder, referendum funds must be spent on our voter-approved referendum purposes only. So a short summary, Our total revenues for our FY '24 budget are coming in at $179 million. Factoring in expenditures and our operational transfers, at this time we have a tentative operating surplus of $814,000. And keep in mind, as I mentioned a couple of items already, these numbers likely will change. We try to minimize any changes between the tentative and the final, but anything that does change, we'll factor that in as we finalize this. So what's next? So the board is scheduled to have their public hearing on September 5th, as I mentioned, and then the final budget will be scheduled to be approved on September 19th. We will, of course, file our budget with all the required agencies and then post it on our district website. And then, of course, we'll finish our meritorious budget award document, and then we'll be submitting that again as well.
And Board, I just want to add in, as you think about that surplus, just a reminder, as we think about our fund balance percentage, it is really based off of a percentage of revenue. And our board policy lays out exactly how that calculation is done. But as revenue changes over time, the amount of the reserves need to change as well in order to maintain a steady fund balance percentage. So we have budgeted surpluses, and based on how big the revenue increases year over year, really drives how much of a surplus we need to retain in operating funds in order to maintain a steady fund balance percentage. And our goal is always to try to keep the fund balance percentage within the board policy of 25 to 40%, so within that guideline percentage. So didn't want you to lose sight of that as we take a look at the numbers for this projected budget. And certainly as we get additional information, we will adjust the tentative to the final. Now, if for some reason we have a major change in our budget that happens after the final budget is adopted, we can, of course, always do an amended budget later in the year. We have to follow the same process as we did for the original budget. And we have had in the last 5 years, at least one I think of that we did, when we actually issued some bonds we weren't expecting, we went through the process to do an amended budget. So that does happen from time to time. We don't like to do it every year unless we need to. But if there is a change that happens once the budget is adopted, we can do an amended budget later during the year to account for that.
Thank you.
I had to say something.
One shot.
Like 2 presentations.
Wonderful job.
Thank you, Sarah.
Any questions that
So
we can
I
answer?
just want to understand again. My memory is last year in January, we decided not to assess DSEP when we did our levy. So do we have until this next January to decide about DSEP, or do we have to decide ahead of time with the budget?
Right, so the DSEB discussions would typically take place in the fall because there is a process in order to issue DSEB, and there's a timeline point at which that debt issuance has to close. So that closure needs to take place right after the turn of the calendar year. So we would normally be talking about that in October. The board would be taking some actions in typically November and December, and then the close would happen on the bonds in January or February in order to submit all of that to the county clerks so that they can then issue that as part of the levy. So we do have time yet, but that is conversations that we'll be having with the Finance Committee over the next month or two, based on what happens as we factor in the reduction in the CPPRT and start to think about how do we address that to ensure that we're delivering a budget that shows a surplus. Hey, thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So, Dr. Winkleman, next up is board priorities.
Yep. So as we've really engaged with our community over the last year and a half to try to understand the priorities of our community and where we need to head with our strategic planning, the board may recall, last spring we have a 28 separate and unique objectives, right? And we came to the board and said, okay, please provide us some input and some guidance on which of these items really rise to the top and would be the first for us to start really putting our efforts and energy into. And out of that feedback, and then considering the timing, because a few of the objectives, one item needs to take place before the next can be accomplished, right? So between the feedback from the board and really looking at all of the objectives and the timing and sequencing of that, we've landed on this set of objectives that you see here as the ones that are going to be the focus of the administrative team and the work of our teachers and staff as we think about really trying to take action to realize the desired outcomes that come in these areas. And so as a starting point, the priorities that you see in front of you are in direct alignment with the work that the administration and the district will be engaged in. Some of these are similar to past priorities that the board has identified, and some of them are new, right? So I think, when you think about stewardship, we've always had something around stewardship being one of our priority areas, making sure we're good stewards of the resources provided to the school district from the community. But then drilling down a little bit, one of the things that we've talked about is that, we've commented a lot on the construction that's been part of the referendum Bill 220 projects. But the design of the Fine Arts Center was included, but not the monies to actually construct, build, or make any renovations to that space. So Fine Arts Center is something that's specifically called out. It is the work of the district, and we've been very involved in trying to bring all of that feedback together, working with our architect firm, and that's actually going to be one of the presentations we'll have here in a couple weeks this fall. So that's kind of the starting point of alignment between the objectives that we're starting with and working on and making sure that this is feedback from the board. And then we can go from there if there's any other priority areas that the board would like to discuss or consider beyond these, or any adjustments or adaptations to what you see in front of you.
Board?
We are getting rid of the extra I in stewardship, right?
Yes. Yes, good catch.
Oh.
Done.
Thank you.
Capitalized bean.
I was,
Bean.
it's like stewardship. I have a question with like safety and security. I know we're always engaged in it, but I know we talked a lot this last year, focused on, resource officers for our middle schools, looking at different kinds of system implementations. Is that something that is always going to be a priority for us and we don't need to highlight it, or is that something that maybe we should?
Yes, and, right? I think safety, whether you're talking about physical safety, emotional safety,
Right.
the environments in our schools, I think safety is always going to be a priority. We talk about that all the time as, I think when our kids feel safe and secure, that's when the best learning can occur. And without that, despite our best efforts, there's going to be some. So it could be specifically called out, or it could be anticipated as that's an ongoing and something we're always going to have.
It feels
top of
strange
mind.
to me not to have something on there about safety.
Should we put something under health and well-being?
Yeah, either that or stewardship.
That's where it comes when you read the bigger explanation on the website. Under health and well-being, there's safe environment, grade level program transition, social emotional learning, and social media awareness and staff wellness.
There's objectives actually in both,
Yeah.
for health and well-being and stewardship, that call out the
Yeah.
feedback around safety and security. I think either one is very logical, and certainly could be incorporated.
Maybe we could add something like emotional and physical safety or something like that.
Why wouldn't you just call, what
Or just
is student safety?
Safety and security. We'll just put your committee on there.
But there's, yeah,
So,
under health and well-being, or is that
Yeah,
okay?
I think health and well-being.
Yeah.
is
Safety and
a little
Okay.
better.
okay, so we can add a second bullet there, safety and security. Makes sense?
I was also wondering under community partnerships and communication, whether we may, I know we talked about family engagement under the diversity or the equity team objectives, but I think we're working, Melissa, I think across all areas, right, with family engagement. Is that something that might make sense under partnerships? If we, or under inclusive education? I don't know, that's something that I think maybe we should think about highlighting, because we've talked about making sure our families are engaged in different areas.
You know, I was gonna make a similar comment, but I agree with you, families are important, but I thought it was more the broader, families and the broader community.
Yeah.
Family and community.
Yeah, so maybe family and community
engagement.
engagement?
Yeah, definitely.
What are you wanting to change? You want to add a bullet?
Yeah, if possible.
So under
Under-
community partnerships and communication, are we expanding the external
Yeah, I
communication
think maybe we
to-
say family and community engagement is a second bullet point. Does that make sense? Because it seems to me a little bit different from just pure communication. This is more about involvement.
Do we wanna just call it external communication and engagement?
I like that.
I like that.
That works too.
We could.
But when,
So no more additional bullets?
I think either one makes sense.
But if we have an and, we might as well just have another bullet point, right?
I'm indifferent, it's fine either way.
So is everyone comfortable with a second bullet point of family and community engagement as a priority area?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, an overarching theme too, and maybe this goes under, sorry, let me get back to that page. Well, I don't know where it fits actually, but in accordance with our mission statement, you know, how do we factor in just the concept of, you know, academic challenges and that theme that we've kind of spoken ad nauseum about? I mean, I think we've said in the framework assignments, it's kind of understood, but in this instance, does it make sense to add it explicitly?
Steve, that's something I was thinking about with regard to, we've talked a little bit about proficiency gaps and sometimes how it's difficult, transitions are difficult from elementary to middle, for example, for some of our community, especially with regard to academics. And even though we've had growth, we've had gaps. I wonder if that kind of can dovetail with that academic focus as well.
So maybe under.
Isn't that part of, I don't know, I guess I'm just thinking about future readiness. I'm also.
Like authentic, maybe we could retweak that authentic learning part?
We're adding a lot.
No, not.
We're adding a lot.
I'm not saying to add, I'm saying can we tweak that so it's a little bit more specific? Because authentic learning is like a little bit confusing to me. Like, what's inauthentic learning,
Well, I do think we want to, it's important to connect this to the strategic plan, but there's everyday practices that we've included in this in past years, like safety and security, something that's like something on top of matching the strategic plan. So I can see where somehow, looking at some aspect where we're measuring our students against other school districts, the state, and nation. Is that kind of what you're trying to get at? That maintaining our academic excellence and measuring it?
I feel like that's more what Steve was getting
Yeah, I'm
to,
literally
but
looking at this, we just put in the, as
Right,
a
we put it in
core.
the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
I was more concerned about transitions, proficiency gaps we
Like goes
have.
under like inclusive.
Inclusive education, maybe that's an
Talk about
inclusive
gaps.
education.
Okay, sorry, I
Which
didn't mean
I
to turn it.
think we have talked about that a lot as being an area we want to focus on, is making the transitions between schools easier.
Right, I agree with you, Katie. That was one of the ones that I thought was something that we thought we should do sooner rather than later, but I know there's not an infinite amount of time and
Right.
energy on the
You guys
staff,
do everything.
obviously. But that was one I thought rose to the top too, the
Yeah.
transitions that
Well, there is only one bullet under inclusive education.
I know.
I'm watching our genius bar, too, how big their eyes are.
They're all looking at
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate the comments because we are trying to be mindful of. I mean, I think everyone in this room wants all of those things. That's why they were identified
Right.
as
Yeah.
priorities. But there is a bandwidth
Yeah.
to this for this board to stay focused on the items on this list, as well as our administrative team and staff to be able to really make progress on that. There is you get too many, and it's going to cause us to delay all of them because our attention and our resources are spread too thin, so.
I do think that's important though, because that focuses on students, whereas like, for example, hiring practices is so critical, but that's more staff-based. So I would like to see something student-focused under inclusive education, and I think focusing on transitions makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so I've heard rigorous academics, I've heard student transitions, and then you just mentioned inclusive education, so.
Well, no, the transition part would dovetail with inclusive education, so that could fall under that.
Okay.
And then for me, the rigorous academics piece, I don't think it's necessarily a bullet. I think I was just confirming that that's like an overarching, like, theme that we have that's kind of permeates throughout in each element.
So
Sorry,
things
so-
like, seems like the rigorous education, actually even safety and security.
Exactly.
And a balanced budget are all kind of
Foundation.
not even need to be mentioned because they're already
Sure.
present, ever
That's fair.
present.
And that's actually kind of what I'm confirming, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in that like, diamond, or I don't know what to call it, but, the
The
graphic.
The
Thank you, hexagon,
hexagon.
thank you. That was like our centerpiece.
It is, and if it's important to the board to kind of have those overarching things, we could add something to the top.
Yeah,
You know what I
maybe,
mean?
yeah.
Just to call out, bring attention to the fact that, yes, rigorous academics, like, that definitely came up, and I think that's what you're speaking to, Steve,
Yep.
right? Is a focus on that, making sure we have safe and secure learning environments for our kids, making sure that we are good stewards of the finances. Maybe those items are just at the top, and then the priorities are really more the specific things that we're working on, because this is for 23, 24. right?
Sure.
We could just put the hex on there somewhere.
So would
When
everyone,
you guys figured out how to do it.
is that okay if we
Yeah.
just take
Yeah.
the feedback tonight, those three
Yeah.
areas, and just add it to the top, rather than continue
that makes sense.
to build in?
Yeah.
Because I think that was an issue last year. People were concerned about comparing schools, and how are we doing as a school district, and just to say, yeah, of course this is important to us, to the community.
Right.
Of course.
We don't have the transition part though in that hex. Is that possible to add that as a bullet point?
So,
under inclusive
I'm gonna-
education?
That one is in.
I'm gonna call on my genius bar, because I know, so while these are priorities, we're working in all of those areas, right? Like, we have transition activities in place
In
right now.
place,
Like,
okay.
we
Right.
have Camp Sixth Grade, we have freshman orientation, as Mr. McWilliams just pointed out. It's occurring on Friday,
gonna
like,
get a hot
there
dog.
are transition. And those things don't just sit and rest, right? Like, we're continually tweaking and adjusting, and I promise the board, we will continue to do that. And there will be work, there will be staff and administrative staff assigned to making sure that those things are moving forward. They're just not,
There.
our full attention is not
Right.
on those right now. So, Dr. Lezwicki, anything to add, 'cause I know this kind of falls, I believe, under your area, right? With transition, you've been very patiently looking at me. I may have something to say, so could you kind of comment on our work around transitions?
We do have transitions as one of our strategic priorities under health and well-being.
Oh.
So that is a focus that we will be working on, that we plan on starting later in the year with our action team to move that part forward. So it is a priority, but when we're looking at the strategic plan, we're looking at a plan that's over 3 to 5 years. And right now, for health and well-being, our major priorities at SEL
For this year. yeah.
for
So-
this year.
That makes
So
sense.
it's like Dr. Winkleman said, we have a lot working on, but over the course of a little bit more time.
So maybe you just hit on something, maybe we change this to say major focus priorities. These are the highlighted priorities for this school year, doesn't mean we're not looking at anything else. Maybe help communicate that a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron, you mentioned to put that under inclusive education, but it is a strategic priority under health and well-being.
Under health, okay.
Already identified through all the data that was collected from all stakeholders.
Perfect, as long as it's in there.
It is.
Great. Great. And so that would include things like, you know, ecology, so like solar panels, our Hart Road development with agriculture. I mean, that's all obviously ongoing, but we don't need to like pull it out and make it a
It
bullet
is
point.
also
Yeah.
a strategic objective under the priority of future readiness, the career pathway piece. So yes, that work is ongoing, similar to how in hiring practices, yes, it seems that it is related mostly to adults, but specifically with the Grow Your Own pathway, that is directly impacting our students. So
It's-
while
oh, yeah,
not
that's
written in
true.
words, it's written in words in our priority area objectives and action steps.
My only remaining question is, can we clear up authentic learning and what that means?
Actually, I was going
If
to
the-
ask that too.
Yeah.
So we're actually working on authentic learning right now. It's one of the things that we're working on this year under the future readiness priority.
Right, but what
Maybe
does
just
that
clarity
mean?
on what
Yeah.
It's in the definition, so, I mean, what are we looking for?
I guess it just seems like all learning should be authentic, so what does
Unique
it
or
home
new.
in on?
I think it's
Yeah.
having our students make those immediate connections and making sure our lesson designs and the activities that we're providing for them take it from, I'm learning this concept, here's the authentic learning, like here's how it's applied, here's how, you know what I mean? You use that together rather than just learning it in separate areas. It's actually authentic learning. And then it could also be, how does learning occur beyond the classroom? How do we get our students to see the application in other settings? Other pieces from the team, anything else to add with how that, and this is going to be something that it's a priority and we're working on it. There will be board presentations this year where we'll actually come and speak to these areas in greater depth and detail to help the board understand.
I think the only other thing I would add to the authentic learning piece is there are so many opportunities for us through these priority areas and objectives and action steps to not only create the through lines and optimize effective learning in a district, but really show them. And when we think of personalized learning and authentic learning and future readiness, what we're really wanting to foster in all of our learners is agency. And what does it look like to have agency? Is we want all of our learners to be empowered. And that means that learning really has to expand beyond the four walls of the classroom. So yes, of course not losing sight of the rigorous academics, but really capitalizing on the fact that it's 2023 and we're preparing our students for a world that we don't yet know what that's going to look like in 2025 or 2030 or 2040. So we need to think through what does authenticity mean from so many different aspects.
And Dr. Carpenter, I think you had something to share too.
Dr. Berg shared what I was thinking. Is that
Darn.
Well,
Mhm.
within the strategic, the framework 2020, there's a lot of terms that are used, and I think we can almost use them interchangeably at times. So as we bring our objective teams together to talk about what does flexible learning mean, what does personalized learning mean, what does authentic learning mean, we start to as I meet with the teams, we start to consider what is our definition of that. What is our definition of authentic learning? What is our definition of flexible learning? And how do we sort of develop a progressional approach to what does that look like at all of our different levels? That's work that we're doing right now. You asked about a definition. I think that's some of the work we're doing right now, and understand how some of these objectives are connected to other objectives when it comes to the different types of learning that we would expect to see in students.
So for clarity's sake, if we changed it to personalized learning, would that completely throw you off, or would that, because to me, that's clearer than authentic learning, either personalized
They're-
learning, holistic learning?
Personalized
Yeah,
learning is its own priority.
They're two
area.
separate things.
Okay,
So
it
under
does
that
throw
area.
you off.
Can I give you the definition
Mhm.
of authentic? So it's in the description. It's explicit. It's on the website, and it is real-world learning experiences through initiatives that promote career readiness, career exploration, problem-based learning, and experiential learning. And then in addition to that, we are also working on a specific definition of authentic learning, as Dr. Carpenter was just talking about. So all of these things are built into the process of the strategic plan.
So super great, like the average parent's not gonna get that.
Yeah.
That's
Right, yeah,
So,
that's fine, like, could we say real world learning,
double
could we
click.
say
Right.
person?
The definition was
good.
good.
The definition
was
is
great.
great.
You.
Yeah, yeah.
That is not what I would get from reading that.
So if you Google Barrington 220, Framework 220, strategic plan, it comes up and you can click on all of them and the definition that you just read
Perfection.
is right there. So
Right.
you can click on future readiness and then it's got the bullets and then it just explains every bullet. So for the people at home, you can find it and you can pull up the bigger definition and for us board members too. Because then you can see it.
Well,
Yeah, and
Because
we've
that's what
seen
I
it
was
and-
doing too.
Right.
'Cause I can't remember all this either.
Well, and even more simply, just on the Barrington website, if you just go to /framework 220,
Yeah.
there's the pamphlet that we were given that's available as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Samantha and Annie have done a great
So-
job of taking all of this information and trying to make it in easily accessible, smaller chunks of information. And again, this is really a kind of a guide, or at least that's how the board has typically used this, of just to make sure we're on track. We have some areas that are identified as being the priority areas, so that as we're doing our work as administrative team, we're bringing updates, we're seeking feedback throughout the year from the board, there's alignment, right? And so I'm happy to add more information or links if that's helpful for the board to modify this document to make it more accessible for you. Could I, before I'm afraid we're gonna add something else, I just wanna make sure I've got so far what we've discussed, right?
Okay.
So, because of the ongoing nature of certain things and the emphasis that we place on them, rigorous academics, safe and secure environments, and demonstrating fiscal responsibility, that's going to be placed at the top so that it's clear that that's ever present, right? And then for 23-24, we talked about adding under community partnerships and communication, family and community engagement as a second bullet. We also talked about adding safety and security under health and well-being, but I think if we call it out at the top, we don't need
Yeah.
it anymore, is that correct?
Right, exactly.
Okay, just trying to keep score here
Good job.
of what we've discussed. And then we had some conversation around transitions, about that work is going to continue, but the large priority is under health and well-being for the 23-24 school year is social emotional learning. We will continue the work in transitions, but we're not going to add a bullet. Did I do okay so far?
Yep.
Was there anything else that we've discussed?
One other idea.
We need to read the website better, is what I'm just.
And we're keeping authentic learning and hoping that that the definition will evolve as we discover more about it.
And maybe be able to double click so we can
Yep, and I was.
easily get to.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yes.
And I can make these links.
Yes,
for
the
board
hyperlink would
to
be
able
great.
to
Yeah.
It'll
have
be-
more
make it more
information.
authentic.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Well played. Well played.
And we're striking the I in stewardship.
Yes.
The extra
Oh,
I.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that part.
I think in the past, we put them alphabetical just so we didn't have like this one's more important or less important. I don't know if that makes sense.
They are in
They are in
alphabetical.
alphabetical.
Oh, hello. Good thing I'm paying attention. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Does this seem to be the focus? And there's, I mean,
No,
we can
this is
always
good.
come back to this
This is
if,
good.
if necessary too. But I think the board has just typically, at this time of year, looked and trying to set priorities and make sure there's agreement and alignment that we're all working and rowing in the same direction with our efforts.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like it.
Okay.
With the
All right.
links.
Good.
Awesome.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay.
All right, so we'll bring this forward to vote on
Yeah.
at our next meeting.
And I'll
With the-
make the
with the
edits.
changes,
Yeah,
right.
I'll make an updated version. Thank you.
Of course. All right, so already applying some of these priorities, our next topic
Yeah.
is
Yeah, good segue.
community board meetings.
Yes, so I'd like to invite Dr. Fuller to come up and join us at the table. Dr. Fuller and his team, you may recall, as we contemplated community partnerships and really family and community engagement, some of the thought was, could we change the format of our board meetings and bring some of these meetings, instead of them all being hosted here at the District Administrative Center, possibly going out to our schools. And so Matt and his team went and looked at our school sites, looked at the type of equipment that we have available that's already been purchased and can be utilized, as well as other sources or services that we may contract with, as well as making a commitment to actually purchasing equipment that could replicate the type of presentation and format that we share with the community by being more mobile in nature. And so with that, that's kind of why we're here today. So Matt's team put together a memo that we shared with the board as far as the costs and considerations for each of those possible paths to looking at taking these meetings to other locations.
All right, we all got the memo.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any clarification questions?
No, but it really explains why it's way harder than we thought it was. gonna be.
Yes,
And more expensive.
You've been
Yeah.
saying.
But so this actually is super helpful because we're like, just figure it out, just go.
Right.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I will say this, though. I mean, she'll be here, shocked to hear me say this, but 150 grand for the materials, it doesn't seem out of the question if we're gonna be able to reach, parents at, different locations that are further away from District Admin Center. I mean, it's a big break even. I mean, it's 30 visits to break even at $5,000 a pop.
Right.
But, I mean, over many years, I mean, I don't know what the useful life or expected life of this equipment would be, but if we can get, 6 a year for 5 years, we'll make our money back, in theory.
Well, I'll say yes, and.
Sure.
I'm guessing there'll be other places we might be able to use this equipment as well.
That's what
And
I
if
was
our
gonna ask.
priority
Yeah.
is family and community engagement.
Right.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
We may be able to reuse said equipment for other events.
I agree. I
True.
was
Yeah,
thinking the same
good
thing.
point. So, yeah, I don't know how the board feels about that, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how, relatively reasonable it was to get the portable equipment.
What about, this is an option to save money, what if we had like a community engagement meeting where there was no voting on any items, but it was a presentation and a chance to interact with the board, and it was only audio? I think that's.
You're saying a committee of the whole or something where there's no voting.
Right, where there's no
basically.
voting, like the meeting we had at Station.
Yeah, committee of the whole.
You know, it would,
There was still,
The audio is
It was-
arguably the most complex part of the system because
Oh.
every
That's why
person
we're
needs a microphone. There needs to be speakers in the area, and it needs to go through a single source that can be then sent out to the internet.
Got it.
so it's not the visual, it's the audio.
It's both.
It's
It's
everything.
It's both.
It's not, you can't chop the price in half for just audio or something.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Just trying to
we
think-
have some
think outside
wonderful
the box,
new
you know?
spaces, that are coming across the district too, that
I agree. and we
I
were
just
talking
feel like
about
we would use it for more than just board meetings.
So Steve, you're saying you think 150 grand is worth it for us to
I'm
be
not
able
saying
to do
it's
this?
worth it. It's dependent upon what the decision of this board would be with regards to doing, remote meetings. Like I said, if 150 grand, and I'm just assuming that the $5,000 is pretty static on an annual basis.
That's
It would
per
take-
meeting, just to be clear.
Correct, per meeting. It would take us 30
Versus-
meetings to break even, essentially, right, to make our money back, so we wouldn't have to outsource. And that's assuming, and if we say we're gonna do 6 per year,
That, and that, to Sandra's point, that's assuming we only use it for.
correct,
board
only for
meetings,
this.
which-
Right.
But I guess at the same time, there's wear and tear that you put on these too. So again, I don't know what the useful life of this equipment is, I don't know.
Well, that's the question. How soon would this equipment become outdated and we pay 150 and 5 years from now, we need another 150,
Yeah, we typically keep these systems for 4 or 5 years. That's about how long
Okay.
they last
So
without.
then we would break even after 5 years, so you almost might as well go outsourced, just to, save the team some time as well, right?
Could we ask you to take it back to your team and see if there are other applications so
Mhm.
that we could make that return on the investment even, more strong? Before we just say,
Sounds like a good idea.
You know, before we just say, we're just gonna rent or whatever. Are there other ideas?
Yeah, I mean, now that we.
Look at the wheels churning in the back of the room.
Now that we have the costs, right, and
Mhm.
we've considered everything, we could discuss, what other options or opportunities may exist for us to fulfill the family and community engagement. And this equipment would actually be beneficial if we had it, rather than having to then spend another,
Right.
contract service just for that one event. Yeah, we could do that.
It also would help our external communication bullet point, like Katie mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 bullet points.
It is. Okay, is that what the board would like us to do, is now to think about other opportunities beyond just the board meetings?
If we were to spend $150,000, what else could we use it for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
College night, for example, at the high school, maybe you could,
Oh, that's really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or some can't make it or whatever, they can access it.
So we could use equipment for that, but it would cost.
PTO meetings.
PTO meetings.
PTO
Oh, PTO meetings.
meetings.
Oh, that's good.
I like that idea.
But it's $5,000 to live stream that as well, right? That's what you said? So per
If
meeting.
we're outsourcing, yes.
Oh, only for, but if we
We're
own the
outsourcing.
equipment.
We own the equipment, we're using our own,
yeah.
people on our own equipment.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. McMillan, that's a good idea, PTO meeting.
Excellent idea.
Yes.
Great idea.
Definitely fulfilling our priority goals.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let our team, based on the feedback from the board, consider that and have an opportunity to discuss, and then we'll bring some feedback to our next meeting.
Thank you. That sounds great. Okay.
Sounds
Great.
good.
Good discussion.
Thank you for doing the research, though.
Thank you.
It was
Yes.
Thank
worthwhile.
you.
Worthwhile.
All right, next up is agenda items for our next meeting on September 5th. School will be well underway. We will have, as we've already talked about, our public hearing on our tentative budget. We'll have enrollment status for day 6, and our action item on board priorities. As always, you can reach out to Dr. Winkleman and I if you've got other ideas between now and then.
We'll probably have some things coming from policy for that meeting, or some readings.
Policy meeting, I guess they canceled today, didn't
It was kids, but we're gonna reschedule before the next board meeting.
So
So
maybe
we may have.
some first readings.
Exactly, some first readings.
they?
Okay.
I took it off because I thought we wouldn't.
What's that?
Oh.
I removed it earlier today because I thought we wouldn't.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so the board does intend to go back into closed session. We do not intend to come back into open session for any action or further discussion. So we will not adjourn at this time. We will just return to closed session. I think we need to still have a vote to do that, right? No? I think we do.
I think so.
We suspend
Yes.
open to
You
go into
suspend open.
closed.
to
So
go
do
back
we have a
and forth.
motion to return to closed session?
So moved.
Second.
And let we do a roll call.
Katie Carum.
Yes.
Sandra Bradford.
Yes.
Erin Chandang.
Yes.
Steve Wang.
Yes.
Leah Colister-Lazari.
Yes.
Diana Clapton.
Yes.
Barry Altshuler.
Yes.
All right, thank you, good evening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.